Hello YouTube and welcome to the channel. The subject of today's video is going to be concerning the Fayee Hemmet looking 6x6 truck here and a spare 260 motor I've got lying around in my spares box. Now there's nothing inherently wrong if you've watched the review video with the power of this thing. It's actually pretty good out of the box, so I've got no complaints, but as ever I think we can do a bit better. And I'm dying to see if I can get another motor and gearbox to fit. Now I've had a quick look I've had a quick look underneath, I should say, and it does look pretty close to the original. So I'm going to try and fit it. I'm not going to upgrade the electronics because, like I say, it's got plenty of go in it already. So I just want to see if this will fit, and B, how much of a difference it makes over the stock 180 that's in the truck. Now then, before we get into the main portion of the video, just a very brief apology. The first lot of footage I took of the disassembly of the truck, unfortunately all the audio was corrupt and I was unable to use any of the footage. So what I've had to do is go back, and instead of showing you a step-by-step guide like I did before, I've just had to sort of a basic run through of what I did in order to fit the motor. It's only because, for continuity purposes, there's a few other jobs I did afterwards, and they wouldn't have made much sense with the footage that I had available. So once again, apologies, and here's the video. Now the first thing I did was obviously remove the truck bed. There's literally 8 screws that hold it on. Once that's removed, I took the dummy fuel tanks off the side. Now these unclip. You have to very gently sort of prise the clips apart, pull the front cover off, and then there's 2 other screws that hold it on to the frame of the truck. Now these have to come out in order to get the motor and casing out. Once these have been removed, as with all these sort of 1/16 trucks with the parallel frame rails, if you undo some of the bracketry and prise the frame apart slightly, you can get the motor out without having to take everything else off. So that's precisely what I did. I just unscrewed the 4 self-tappers on the first axle, slackened off the ones for the second, and that gave me enough room so I could prise the frame rails apart to withdraw the old motor. So it came out as one piece. On the Fayee there's 2 grub screws as well that hold the drive shafts on. They have to be removed before and the drive shafts slid off before you can get the motor out. Once the old motor's been withdrawn, you can basically fit the new one in the reverse of disassembly. So just again prise the frame rails apart, gently push the motor in, and repeat the steps in reverse order. I did have 2 issues, however, while I was assembling it, which I could probably save you a lot of head scratching. The motor and gearbox has to be assembled. The motor has to be assembled within the like little hot gearbox casing as one. If you just assemble the case and then try fit the motor afterwards, it won't go because of the this plastic tray for the servo and the electronics. So motor and gearbox together, assemble, you won't have an issue. The second issue I had was that obviously with the 260 motor, it already comes with 2 universal joints attached, so I needed to make up one that would go into the axle on the truck at the bottom there. Now I managed to make one for the front by sort of hybridizing the bits that come with the motor and the truck, but the rearward one is too short, So I've had to fit a metal axle that I've had lying around, but that seems to be long enough to bridge the gap between because this motor I think sits slightly lower down in the frame, and the shaft doesn't have to be so long. The 260 motor seems to sit a little higher, so the shaft that I made wasn't long enough, so I've put a metal one on that I had lying around. Well, while everything was off, I thought I'd fit a light kit as well. So we've now got twin headlights and a set of rear tail lights as well. It's a fairly straightforward operation, as the Fayee headlights have this dual unit, but only one of the holes is used for a LED, so you can sneak one of the kit's LEDs into that hole and just put a little blob of glue on the back. I did also, because on the lighting kit there's some inline resistors supplied for the headlights, I cut them out because the power from the circuit board inside must be already metered to the light. So originally they were quite dim, so I cut the resistors out to let them get the full benefit from the power from the circuit board. One of the other steps I did forget to mention when you're removing the motor is there's two screws either side of this back portion of the cab, so these need to be removed, and then you can quite handily tilt the cab up like that so you can get access to all the gubbins underneath. So if that's by design, Fayee, well done. So all that's left for me to do now is put everything back on and charge the battery, and we'll take it outside and try this new motor. So what did we think about fitting the 260 motor in the 6x6? First off, I think ease of fitment, virtually a straight swap, apart from having to make a sort of a hybrid axle for the front, which is no big deal, and having to stick a longer metal axle on the sort of rear output of the gearbox. Apart from that, it went straight in. Secondly, it's definitely got a bit more torque and power than the original 180. As you saw from the running part of the video, towing the trailer and having the tools in the bed, the tools I think were about 1.5 kilo, and the trailer with the logs in is roughly about another kilo, so it's pulling around 2.5 kilos of weight. The truck itself weighs approximately 1100 grams, so 1.1 kilo, so it certainly can pull a decent amount around with it. All the power though did have one unexpected effect, and that was to undo some of the work I originally did on trying to get a bit more traction. I think the bit of extra power, a bit of extra torque. I did notice when I was running it round that it did sort of start to spin the wheels up a little bit easier, and once these wheels start to spin, because they're open diffs, that's it, game over. No, you lose all traction unless the other two wheels are in contact, have good contact with the ground. So that was one thing I did notice. Didn't tend to do it when it's fully laden, but when it wasn't laden, if it came across an obstacle where you might cock a couple of wheels up, it did lose a bit of traction, and I think it's down to that extra torque and power from the 260. For a future video, I might actually try hybridizing the transmission by swapping the front Fayee differential and put a non-diffed WPL axle in there. They do look very similar, and I'm pretty sure it'll be a straight swap. So I think I'll try that, but that'll be a future video. Might try playing around with all three axles possibly and see what happens. I know it's you're getting to the point where you're swapping everything on the truck, but just that it might make a nice interesting change. And I think, as ever, in order to get the biggest benefit from putting a larger motor in any of these little trucks, is you're probably better off running a dedicated ESC and upgrading the electronics, because the factory stuff, the Fayee is the best one I've come across so far actually, but the factory stuff, the electronics, the amount of power they can transmit to the motor is probably a little bit restrictive. So if you wanted to get the best out of the 260 motor, putting a 260 motor or a larger motor in one of these, you're probably better off upgrading the electronics at the same time. Although, like I said, the Fayee is probably one of the better ones I've come across for power. Well, that's all for this video. If you found this information of any use or relevance, please click the thumbs up, give me a like, and if you're feeling that way inclined, subscribe to the channel. Really does make a big difference. So once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Thank you.